Hello, my friends. D.L. Anderson here. Welcome back to Transformation by Truth podcast as we share the truth concerning these last days and what you must do to save yourself from the violent times that are just ahead. Today's podcast is a word of truth accounting of the end times. The end is coming. The end is near. Today's podcast is entitled The Assault Against the Word of Truth, Part 3. The Call for Faithful Men to Defend the Truth. The podcast objectives are reveal why many are joining Satan in his assault against the word of truth, reveal Satan's master plan for all false doctrine, reveal the controversy associated with the word of truth, and reveal the real issue with Satan's controversy. Welcome. Now, before we begin today's lesson, I would like to welcome all my beloved brothers and sisters in Yahushua Messiah who have been scattered to the four corners of the earth, who Yahuwah has joined to this ministry for such a time as this. I would also like to welcome anyone who is engaging our podcast or videos for the first time. We trust you were led by the set apart spirit in finding us. And if you continue to be led, we hope you stay with us. For these are troubling times, and an evil day is just ahead. To this end, if you are watching this video on YouTube and you have not subscribed to our channel, click the subscribe button below, and you will be alerted whenever we post new videos. Also, if you have any questions at the conclusion of this video, you can ask them using the link in the podcast description below the video player. Last but not least, if you like the video, please give it a thumbs up so YouTube can share it with believers like us. If we cannot receive his will. Shalom, my beloved brothers and sisters, and welcome back to our Word from a Watchman series. Today is day 600 of our exposition of lawlessness and our quest for holiness, perfection, and everlasting life. No doubt, we have come a long way from the beginning, and the progress we have made is conclusive evidence that we are true contenders for the seal of Elohim. My dear friends, we have what it takes to be saved in these last days, for the time has come, and we, unlike the common rock, have endured sound doctrine. Notwithstanding, I admonish you to stay strong in the ruach of endurance, for we still have a long way to go. And one of the keys to getting there is understanding how the enemy is attacking the word of truth in these last days, a topic we have addressed for the past 3 weeks. Now, in our most recent lesson, we analyzed the difference between divine scripture and the text. And as it is such a crucial matter in understanding Satan's attacks against the word of truth, I will summarize it with the following revelation. Get this. Divine scripture is the word of Elohim, written by men who were ordained by Elohim. On the other hand, the texts are the collection of all the writings that are professed to be divine. This is why the texts are often referred to as the scriptures. Now, here lies the problem, to wit, the variance between divine scripture and the text is being controverted by Satan and his children, i.e., the false Hebrews in the dying nation of Israel. Here is why. By manufacturing controversy between divine scripture and the text, Satan has deceived many into joining him in his assault against the word of truth. Now, here lies an even bigger problem. To wit, the word of truth is the source of all knowledge, and knowledge is our spiritual conduit for receiving the will of Elohim, i.e., the source of our salvation. And thus, the following is true. Satan's assault against the word of truth is designed to corrupt our knowledge so that we cannot receive the will of Elohim. For if we cannot receive his will, we cannot achieve his will, and thus we cannot be saved. Now, these things being what they surely are, we must continue our analysis of the assault against the word of truth. And although this knowledge will be of no value to the false Hebrews who are already gone, it will go a long way in keeping you from joining them. As I say, it is a sad reality, but it is our reality that the best outcome for all parties involved is that we keep ourselves from joining them. And so, let's get started. The knowledge Satan is most desperate to hide. Now, before we dive into the next layer of this controversy, the Ruach is leading me to remind you how we got here. To wit, at the conclusion of our 7-part series on the United Nation of Israel, he led me to focus our Watchmen series on the exposition of false doctrine. Here is why. False doctrine is the material version of deception, which is the deadliest degree of lawlessness. Ergo, false doctrine is not just any poison. Quite the contrary, it is the deadliest poison known to man. Now, you learned this in the United Nation of Israel, Part 7, which was posted on November 7th, 2025. And seeing as that podcast was a major turning point in this series, I would strongly encourage you to re-engage that podcast when you have the time. Along these lines, you learn that false doctrine is not just any killer. Quite the contrary, false doctrine is a serial killer, for he has destroyed nations, and he is a silent killer, for none of his victims ever saw him coming. Not only this, but false doctrine is the primary driver of division, which is why it always brings forth death. For a nation divided cannot stand. Ergo, the only way we can achieve the unity of the faith is if, and only if, we guard ourselves from false doctrine. Now, as you learned, the best way to guard ourselves from false doctrine is by exposing false doctrines and the false Hebrews who are promoting them. And yet, you cannot expose false doctrine if you are not wearing the girdle of truth. Remember, the girdle of truth converts all our beliefs into knowledge, and the enemy knows this, which is why he invests so much time and effort in assaulting the word of truth. It is to prevent men and women from receiving the knowledge of Elohim. Now, you must appreciate how Satan is very strategic in his assaults against the word of truth. And as I told you before, if you pay attention, Satan will always show you his crooked hand. And as we were watching, here is what we have learned. The knowledge that Satan is most desperate to hide is the revelation of Yahushua Messiah. Ergo, the first false doctrine the Ruach led us to address is the false narrative that the Torah of Yahushua Messiah does not agree with the Torah of Moshe. Why? It's because this false narrative has been effective in hiding the revelation of Yahushua Messiah in these last days. Remember, although we are in the season of sealing, the overarching theme of these last days is restoration. And the one who is restoring the renewed nation of Israel is Yahushua Messiah. And thus, the following is true. The best way to prevent the physical seed of Jacob from being restored is by turning them against the only one who can restore them. And the best way to turn them against their restorer is by manufacturing controversy between him and the Torah of Moshe. For the former Torah is the foundation of our belief system. Now, we invested 7 podcasts on that topic. And so I'm not going to relitigate a case that Yahuwah has already settled. However, you must realize that the assault against the word of truth is just one more iteration of Satan's master plan to hide the revelation of Yahushua Messiah from the world. Therefore, seeing as we have completed a high-level overview of the Torah of Yahushua Messiah, we must continue our exposition of all the false doctrine that are designed to hide the revelation of Yahushua Messiah. Let's keep going. The key to understanding divine scripture. Now, let's talk about the controversy Satan is manufacturing between the text and divine scripture. And if you are operating in the Ruach of discernment, then you already know it is the same model of controversy he has manufactured within the Torah. To wit, Satan is pitting divine scripture against the text, the same way he pitted the Torah of Moshe against the Torah of Yahushua Messiah. Here is why this is so dangerous. The texts are the key to understanding divine scripture, for divine scripture is recorded within the text. However, there are some writings within the text that are not divine. Likewise, not all the divine writings are within the text. This makes the text an easy target for the enemy, and thus they are the primary source of the controversy. Now, before we analyze this controversy at the detailed level, the Ruach is leading me to state the real issue. And trust me, it is not the inconsistencies and or inaccuracies within the text. Quite the contrary. The real issue is this. Anyone who has unlocked the sword of the Ruach has the power to rightly divide the word of truth. Ergo, they also have the power to rightly divide the text. Therefore, the variance between divine scripture and the text can easily be deciphered by those who have ascended to the plane of knowledge. Now, here lies the problem. To wit, the vast majority of so-called believers have never ascended to the spiritual plane of knowledge. And the enemy knows this. And so let me tell you what he is doing. Seeing as the vast majority of men and women cannot decipher the text, Satan is using them to conduct a full scale assault against the truth within the text. And because these false Hebrews are infected with the 16 deadliest degrees of lawlessness, they have no idea that they are working for the enemy. And still, this is just one of the many ways that they are being deceived. To defend the truth and all its vehicles. Now, we are going to address the truth about the text in the next podcast. However, the Ruach is leading me to reiterate that the texts are not the issue. Listen to me, for this is a critical matter you must understand. To wit, the real issue is that our nation is filled with dogs, goats, and swine who resist the Tehuda and the Torah of Yahushua Messiah. And thus, unlike us, these false Hebrews have never ascended to the plane of spiritual knowledge. And that, my friends, is the real issue. And it is the only issue. Vis-a-vis, these petty fools are taking issues with the text when they have no potential for understanding the text. It's the worst kind of insanity. Not only this, but it is evidence that the 16 deadliest degrees of lawlessness are in play. To wit, they are the source of Satan's strategy for creating an army of false Hebrews to do his dirty work. And I'll prove it. Get this. Everyone who has not ascended to the plane of knowledge is by default operating to some degree in ignorance and deception. Ergo, the enemy will hide the truth within the text from them because they are infected with ignorance, after which he will deceive them into wrestling with the truth within the text because they are infected with deception. Not only this, but they will also attack true believers like us because we have been girded with the truth. Ergo, the set apart spirit will incite us to defend the truth and all its vehicles. That includes the text. Now, that said, we find ourselves on a battlefield against false Hebrews, false prophets, and petty fools who have joined Satan in his assault against the word of truth and the knowledge of Elohim. And trust me, we are going to win. Besides the fact that we are dealing with a pathetic company of spiritual rejects and lowlives who have no real power. Let me tell you something. They aren't even organized. Besides the fact that they are fighting each other, many of these poor fools don't realize that they are all fighting for Satan. Here again, this is the power of deception. Look here. Some of these false believers think they are doing Elohim a favor. Alas, they think the command to attack the knowledge of Elohim was given by Elohim. 'Tis madness, 'tis insanity, 'tis foolishness, 'tis folly. Let me tell you something. There is a reason why the Ruach led us to analyze the progression of death before knowledge and wisdom. It was to show you why 90+% of our people are dying. Listen to me. It was to make it clear to you why they are not being saved and why they will never be saved. It is because they are infected with the 16 deadliest degrees of lawlessness, and thus they lack knowledge. And I'll say it again. Our people, past and present, have persistently been destroyed for their lack of knowledge. For because they have no knowledge, they have no idea that they are fighting against Elohim. And our nation continues to be under a curse. Now, these things being what they surely are, the Ruach is leading me to call an audible for next week. To wit, we will suspend our exposition of lawlessness so that we can address this crucial matter, for it is at the foundation of the destruction of our nation. From now, I will use the sword of the Ruach to reveal the truth about the text and to show you what is really happening when you see the false Hebrews in this nation wrestling with the text to the point where they openly refute the scriptures or they casually throw them away. My dear friends, Isaiah warned us that the day would come when the false Hebrews would throw away the truth within the text. For look, listen, it has been written, judgment is driven back, and righteousness stands afar off. For truth has fallen in the street, and equity is unable to enter. Now, that said, I encourage all my beloved brothers and sisters to hold fast to the truth you have received from Elohim, and don't let anyone lead you astray. And if you're with me, stay with me, and I'll see you on Monday. As always, stay locked in, and Yahuwah bless you until then. Now, here is the final word. The greatest thing you'll ever do is stand for right and what is true. Brothers and sisters, hear me carefully as I say, I understand how convenient it is for unfaithful men and women to turn a blind eye to the truth. But you must always remember that this is the reason why they are blind. As I say, men and women don't wake up looking to become instruments of the wicked one. And yet, this is who they are, actors and actresses in a showcase of death. And Satan is the biggest star. Heretofore, I recommend, don't be slack in your defense of the truth, for the only way forward is to fight. So lean on the everlasting arms of the Most High and trust in the power of his might. Selah. Now, here is today's assignment. Meditate on today's lesson. And if you have any questions, please submit them using the form at pinnacleofholiness.com. And I will respond to you as soon as I can. Now, here is what's next. We completed today's podcast, The Assault Against the Word of Truth, Part 3. And the next podcast is entitled, The Assault Against the Word of Truth, Part 4. I will post this podcast on Monday, February 23rd, 2026. Until then, my friends, continue to be led by the Spirit of Elohim. Continue to watch, continue to pray, continue in fasting, and most of all, continue to be focused, for the end is coming. The end is near.